Liz and I did something yesterday that we hadn't done in quite a long time. Get your mind out of the gutter. We only did that twice, once for Jacob and once for Jane. In this episode of the I Can't See You podcast, I'll tell you what it was, and I'll also give you a couple other updates.
From Studio C, welcome to the I Can't See You podcast with David. He can't see, but he's got a lot to say and a face for radio.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 104 of the I Can't See You podcast. My name is David, at David Benj on all the socials. I really appreciate you joining me for today's episode, and I've got a few things to talk about. And I'm a little late recording because of yesterday's snow, and I actually should be out front now helping Liz shovel the driveway again. So I'm going to make this one a fairly quick one, I hope. And but I do have a couple of things to talk about, one of it being shoveling snow and the condominium and things like that. And I know I said back once I hit episode 100, I wasn't going to name the episodes anymore, but I've actually been waiting for this one. Again, this is episode 104, and it's kind of funny. As I've mentioned on previous episodes, I listen to the alternative radio station in Philadelphia. It's now called Alt 104.5 Philly. And about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, the morning guy was let go, and his name is Johnny. And I loved listening to Johnny each morning, not because he had all sorts of crazy stuff going on like most morning shows. It was mostly music, and it was, the stuff that he did talk about, it wasn't long. So he was funny, he gave you some information, and he played music. And all three things it was just perfect. So on that day in January, I want to say it was January 13th, song ended, and he usually comes back on and he would talk to the person who's coming on next, who is Amber Miller, who's the midday person there. And all of a sudden it went right from the song to, I don't remember if it was commercials or something else. And I'm like, uh-oh, what happened? And sure enough, later that day or the next day, we found out, that he was let go. And I thought, man, that's tough. I've been listening to him for so many years, and I don't remember how many years all told. Probably 10 years at least. Not quite sure, but, in that ballpark, I'm pretty positive. And every morning when the next day came, they had some guy on, and it wasn't the same. It was a guy who was based in Washington and, obviously didn't know the area. So it was just different. And it turns out that they were waiting to do some other morning show, which they started over the summer. And it's one of those morning shows, if I wanted a morning show like they have now, and it's called The Woody Show, and, that show is in a lot of markets in the U.S. I would just listen to Preston and Steve because I like them. But, when I'm getting ready in the morning, whether I'm in the shower or getting dressed or whatever, I want to listen to mostly music. I like to hear this stuff every once in a while, blurb about news or, about a band or whatever. So as every day went by, I thought, well, I'm going to get over this at some point. It's almost a year later, and I still haven't found something to listen to in the morning. Because, like I said, I've tried Preston and Steve, but I want to hear less talk and I want to hear more music. Liz loves Preston and Steve, by the way, and I'm fine listening to them when we're in the car and going somewhere. And I'll never forget, we were going to I was going to an eye appointment, may have even been a surgery, and we had them on, and we're driving to the hospital or whatever, the doctor's office, and they're on, and Steve was doing something, and I was laughing so much, tears were coming out of my eyes, and I actually could see clearer after I got done listening. When we got to the hospital or the appointment, whatever it was, I thought, oh my God, why can I see better now than when I left the house? And pardon me, because I do have some sort of cold going on, probably from being outside all day yesterday. Okay, all day was only an hour, but so if I do want that kind of morning show, I there's no other place that I'd have to look is Preston and Steve, because they're funny. I like them. just don't want that kind. I want somebody like Johnny. We had these little bits at certain hours, and I could tell what time it was without him ever saying the time. I knew that if a certain segment was coming on, I knew that it was 8:40 or whatever. And I knew, okay, I better hurry up. Or, everything, it was perfect. And so each day when I would get up and try and find something to listen to, I'm thinking it felt like somebody had died because I'm not hearing that guy anymore. And it was just disappointing. And the funny thing was, like I said, that was in January. There has not been another actual concert. They had those drive-in concerts over the summer at Citizens Bank Park, which, was just too soon for Liz and I to even consider, especially with the pricing. If we didn't load up the car, it just didn't make sense. And we certainly weren't going to load up the car during coronavirus. So there hasn't been any live music since that day for us to go to. We used to go to shows over the summer. Their outdoor winter show got canceled because of weather. It's just kind of funny. It's almost like the music gods were still against this. And even last summer, thinking about it, all the good stuff that we had with music, we got to meet all sorts of bands. I even said to Liz, what's going on that we're doing this now? What's coming? I guess I shouldn't have asked. But this episode, before I get off too much on a alternative music tangent, this episode is the Johnny episode because I still miss him every morning, not hearing him, when I'm getting ready. And I'm also thinking about him today. Today is the 17th of December as I record this, which is also the day it drops. 3 years ago today, we were in London, and I had these old sneakers. I had these old sneakers that when we were in London and walking around a couple days had torn a little more, and the sole was coming off a little more. So Liz said, today while we're out and about, we are getting new sneakers for you. I said, I don't want to get new sneakers. I'll get them when I get home. Nope, we're getting them today. So we did what we were going to do, and we went to Hyde Park where they have this Christmas thing going on, which was awesome. It was just awesome to be in London at Christmas time. And I know Jane misses London completely, but, we were only there, for a week in December and a week in September. So, obviously we would like to go back as well. Jane wouldn't hesitate moving there, I don't think. But so after Hyde Park and we did the Christmas thing, which was, like I said, awesome. We went to Oxford Street, and I don't know if you're familiar with the song called Christmas Lights by Coldplay. We took our feet to Oxford Street, trying to right a wrong, but that part, trying to fix my shoes was basically, and Oxford Street is the shopping street in London. So, we go into Nike and we go into, I don't remember if we went into an Adidas store, if it was just, a store that sold Adidas, but then we go into New Balance, which my old sneakers were New Balance, and found a pair of sneakers that I liked, but they were 125 pounds. And I'm like, oh my God, 125 pounds. And, Liz and Jane are like, well, you spend that much on your regular shoes? I said, no, I don't. They were $100. And I don't remember what the exchange rate was, back then. So Jane goes over and asks one of the sales folks, she said, I'm a student. Do I get a student discount? She's like, the person says, yeah, you do. And so, okay. So it knocked it down from 125 pounds to 112 pounds 50. And we bought them. And then 3 days later, I am getting prepared to have my detached retina reattached. And I don't know if he was a nurse, some sort of attendant. His name was Gio. And he saw my sneakers and he said, oh, I have the same pair in black. He said, how much did you pay for them? I said, 112 pounds 50. He's like, what? I said, 112 pounds 50. I said, I bought them in London a few days ago. And he said, oh, I paid, and I don't remember what he paid. I think he paid $150. So mine were slightly cheaper. And I said to him, my daughter was with us. She's a student. So we got a student discount on, we saved 10%. And he loved his and so we talked about it. So after I shoveled the snow yesterday, I came back in and I took off my snow shoveling shoes, which aren't boots. And we got about 6 inches of snow. They're a very old pair of Schuler bicycle from Johnston Murphy. And they're the first pair that I bought. They're about 14 years old, almost 15 years old, but they're still comfortable. I don't want to get rid of them because they're comfortable, and I use them to shovel the snow. If they get beat up, they're already beat up, so it doesn't matter. So when I put those shoes on last night, I realized that, hey, today was the 16th of December, and tomorrow, meaning today, is the 17th. It's the day that I bought them. And, so then I started thinking back, that day was just great. It was a Sunday back in 2017, and we were walking around London, and it was the hustle and bustle of Christmas. It was just outstanding. It was just a great time to be there. So to tie the two together, the Johnny episode and the sneakers, Johnny is an avid runner, and he always talked about that on his morning show. So when I thought about those two things as I sat down to record, I thought, wow, that is pretty funny that, the day that I'm recording is the sneaker day. And he was always talking about a shop that he went to get his shoes from in Philadelphia. And so it's the Johnny episode. It's and the anniversary of me buying my sneakers. And so I can give you those updates. Another update is fantasy football, because this podcast episode wouldn't be complete until I told you about my outstanding victory. And again, I had to text my friend David Cleveland from Houston. I had to text him because I was playing him, and I was losing by, I don't remember what the total was. I want to say 60 or 70 points going into Monday Night Football. It was 115 to 57. And I thought, man, I am done. The confidence meter on the Yahoo thing said, I think I had a 4% chance of winning. And then Lamar Jackson became Superman and brought in a boatload of points. And Kareem Hunt did almost the same on the other side of the ball. They were the two guys that I had, and I ended up winning by like 6 points. And I am in the losers bracket of the league, the consolation, trying to be the best of the worst, as it were. So I did win. I don't know who I play this week. I just can't imagine I will continue my winning ways. We'll see. And as you know, I will update you next week. But I just thought that was funny. And that Monday Night Football game was just an outstanding game. So, all the way around, it was good. And I was shocked when I checked the score right before Kareem Hunt scored, and I knew that when he scored, I was going to win. So that's kind of funny. And David, I apologize. So that's the fantasy football update. The other update, it's kind of twofold. As I mentioned, shoveling the driveway. And so yesterday it was snowing quite heavily, and we had to go pick up Jacob from Target at the mall, the Springfield Mall. And I hate to drive over snow and pack it down. So we went out and shoveled the driveway before the snow had ended. And, just so we weren't packing a whole bunch down, but the storm wasn't over. So today we have still quite a bit of snow on there because we got another inch or two of snow after we got done shoveling. And then the sleet and freezing rain came. So it is just one real thick piece of ice, basically, that's on our driveway. And we share a driveway with another house. So, when they saw us out there shoveling, they said, oh, we have a snowblower. We said, no, but we have to go out, so we want to not pack it down anymore. They said, okay. So I'm hoping that we didn't make them mad, because they're very nice. They're very nice people. Rosine and Ken are their names. They live right next door to us. We share the driveway. And so it was the first time we had to shovel in over 4 years, because we had moved into the condo in June 2016. So I guess it might have been closer to 5 years that we shoveled the driveway. And I'll tell you this, the last time we shoveled at our house in Media, it was a really big snowstorm where the drifts were above the mailbox and stuff like that. It was, like a 20 or 30 inch, snowstorm, and and we didn't miss doing that. But last night when we're shoveling 4:00 in the afternoon, I got to say, it didn't bother me. It was a little bit heavy, but I liked being out in it, and I actually missed doing that. And, it made me, shoveling the driveway always makes me think back to when I was a kid. And growing up in my parents' house, my dad would say, okay, make sure you shovel the driveway today. And more times than not, he would come home from his store, maybe at lunchtime, because there was one that he had, that was fairly close, or two that he had that was fairly close that he could, come home for lunch if he wanted to. And he would see me shoveling our neighbor's driveway, and our driveway was still coated. And he would say, what are you doing over there? I said, they asked me to shovel it. And the reason I always shoveled it first, Mrs. Cutler, the wife, not always, but mostly all the times I shoveled, made me gingerbread men cookies. And they were so good, and I loved them. And my dad couldn't figure out. He's like, did he need me to pay you? I said, no. I said, she makes gingerbread cookies. I said, I'll get it. Don't worry. And so I then would finish shoveling theirs and come back and shovel ours. And so shoveling the driveway always makes me think of those gingerbread men from back when I was a kid and how good they were, and how much fun I liked being out in the snow. And we had a dog at the time named Schnapps, who was a Schnauzer. And, he would love playing out in the snow, and, you'd throw snow at him and he'd run after it and try to catch it in the air. And he was not very athletic, though. He wasn't like Zamboni with some of the stuff he could get. Zamboni was our golden retriever that we had when our kids were younger. And so we're looking forward to, it's another thing that we're looking forward to. You have Mushu out in the snow. And, that should be fun. Although our back door is frozen shut this morning, so I'm guessing that's going to be trouble once we have the dog. So the snow shoveling and the condo then ties into, we had some, I don't want to say issues, but, they did their inspection. And if you've ever bought or sold property, you kind of know it's very similar to me to, when an athlete, and I guess maybe only baseball does this, when a baseball player goes to arbitration, the team basically said, you're not worth that because this, and this. And the player says, I am worth that because that, and that. And so we got the report back. And there were some things that we expected on there. There was an outlet in Jacob's room that I don't think worked from the beginning. I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember. We expected an issue to be with that. But there were some things that the inspector found that was very troubling to me. And I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you what it was, and I'll tell you why. A foreign biological substance. And I think they mean mold. But not 100% sure. They didn't call it mold, and I think they used foreign biological substance because they don't want to guess what it is, just in case it's not mold. And here's where it was, and this is why it's troubling to me. It was spotted from where the new vanity was put in. I guess the new vanity that we put in our hall bathroom didn't have a back. And it either showed more wall than the other vanity, or the other vanity had a back and only had the holes for the pipes to come through. So it was very visible. Now, again, I didn't notice it because I didn't look in there. Once the vanity was in, I assumed it was good. I wouldn't have seen it otherwise. Now I know Liz didn't look in there. I don't think our real estate agent looked in there. Again, it's a brand new vanity. Why would we look? So it falls back to the contractor. If there was something there, why didn't he say something? And he told the real estate agent he didn't know what it was. Well, if it's dirt, wipe it off. Does that go above and beyond? You know why why you're there doing all this stuff? We're trying to sell our apartment. And that really bothered me because, again, just like when the painter said, how does this look? And I said, well, it looked fine before you started because I can't tell. So it irritated me because of that, because this contractor, and he's the same contractor that built Studio B and did our whole basement. And there was a funny issue here where in the closet that is out in the hallway between Studio B and Jacob's bedroom, there's a closet in the hallway. There was a 2x4 in there, and we got a shelving unit, and Liz went to move the 2x4 thinking it was just a 2x4. Well, it was nailed into the ground, and it was part of the wall that makes up the back wall of Studio B. And he just didn't cut it off. Like, why would you leave 3 feet or so of a 2x4 nailed into the cement floor that you know is going to be a closet, or you know is going to be anything? Why would you leave that? Why not cut it? Is it because you're lazy? And so the more and more, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, as we were finishing the basement, he was a typical contractor, and I was disappointed in that. I didn't want a typical contractor. I wanted Henry Pettinati. And Henry Pettinati was a guy that we used from the time I was, 5 or 6 years old until, I don't know, he did some work at our house in media, probably like 15 years ago, 10 years ago. I mean, he died a year or two ago, and he was in his 90s. So he was doing work for us in his 80s. And he was outstanding. And so it irritated me that he knew it was there. He said, "Yeah, I saw it. I didn't know what it was." Well, he knew where there was cleaner in the place, or he had been running to Home Depot for other things. Take a paper towel and some Windex or some sort of cleaner and clean it. Actually, he was cleaning the shower stall in the master bath. He could have tried to use that, but he didn't. And and that really bothered me. It bothered me more than one of the other things that the inspector found was that the flooring in the hall bath and the master bath weren't installed properly and need to be addressed. He installed it. I asked him about it because Liz and I walked on it and we said, "Oh, this feels a little funny." No, once it's all tied in, it'll be good. Well, evidently it wasn't. And, again, that's just poor workmanship. So that then made me think of, oh God, what's wrong in here, in Studio B and in Jacob's room and the rest of the stuff that he finished here? What are we going to find later on? Again, I'm at a disadvantage because I can't see, some of the stuff that, that I need to see to say, hey, what's wrong with that? That doesn't look right. Like that 2x4, just unreal. And, I don't want to get into the habit of having to call someone else over or get somebody to come and inspect it to make sure something is good. But, sometimes I guess that's, what you got to do. And I was just disappointed because I thought the contractor, he seemed like a nice enough guy. But again, now I know he was just a typical contractor. And when our real estate agent asked him about, why didn't you do something about that? He got very defensive and said, my work is great and blah, blah, blah. Okay, maybe it is, but not for this job. It wasn't. Not for this job. And one last thing before I go, while we're talking about being independent, it was brought up this week that somebody wanted to send a check to the Keystone chapter, and I never pushed, the check aspect of, giving. I always pushed the electronic aspect of giving via PayPal or just your credit card. Yeah, I mean, you can use your credit card. You don't have to have a PayPal account. PayPal is going to be the credit card processor. Yeah, it costs us money to do that. But you know what? In the summer when the bank only had the drive-through open, or the spring, I should say, when the bank only had the drive-through open and Liz was still teaching, there was no way I could get to the bank. They had limited hours and it was only drive-through. I wasn't going to take an Uber and go with somebody I didn't know. I didn't even want to get in a car with, a family member outside of our house or our real estate agent when we were starting to look at the apartment, to sell the apartment. So, I pushed it because of that. And because if somebody sends me a check, I'll greatly accept the check. I'll greatly accept cash. Any currency you want, send it to me as long as it's a valid currency. I'll get it to the bank somehow. It might not be easy, but I'll do it. But when you send currency or you send a check, I need somebody's help because the mobile app from our bank isn't accessible. So I can't just simply try and take a picture of the check and deposit it. And we're going to try again, Liz and I are going to try again to get it to work so if I can, hopefully once I'm logged in once, I don't need to go through that to try and log in again. And the bank that our chapter uses, it's just outstanding. I mean, they've done just about anything that we asked. But I got an email last night because I sent out, email and talk of dues for 2021 came up at our last meeting, and I sent out an email a week ago about paying your dues. And you can pay using PayPal. Here's the link. Well, one person got back to me and said, I've paid, and I had gotten the email about that we got paid, got the notification. She said, but I also want to make a donation. How could I do that? Using PayPal. And so I created 5 links, a $5 donation, a 10, a 25, a 50, and 100. And I sent them to her. I said, I'm not sure how much you wanted to give, but here are some links. I'm going to send this to the listserv so everybody else, if they want to donate, can donate. So I sent out an email with the links, and I said, you can pay one of 2 ways, using PayPal or the old-fashioned way by sending a check. Make the checks payable to Keystone Chapter of the NFB of PA and mail them to me, and I put my address down. And, as always, any donation is appreciated. We're grateful, blah, blah, blah. Happy holidays, whatever I said. I don't remember, in closing, I said something about the holidays, I'm sure. So the person who had asked and another person, made a donation. Now, there's somebody else that asked about donating a little while ago. They have not yet made a donation. So I'm interested to see if they do as well. But then I got an email from a friend of mine, the person who's responsible for me being in the NFB in the first place. And he was upset that I said sending a check was old-fashioned. And as I said to him, I apologized. I said if I made him feel he said slighted. I said if I'm sorry if I made you feel slighted. But how many checks do you write today, and how many did you write 15 years ago? Liz and I were talking about this. We used to write checks for everything. We would probably write 15 to 20 checks a month. On average now, we write like 3 checks a month. And that's when like taxes are due or something like that. But most other payments are paid electronically, either via credit card or directly from our bank account, whatever. But, vendors, the lawn guy that takes care of our lawn here, I've never met him face to face. He cuts the grass and does the cleanup or whatever. And when he's done, he Venmos me, does a Venmo request, and I Venmo him the money. When we had the condo cleaned by the cleaning company, you could pay by Venmo. I said, okay. When I paid the contractor for all the work he did, it's over $4,000, Venmo. So again, those things they all used to be done by check. The lawn guy would have been, at the end of the month, I would have gotten an invoice, and then we'd write a check. And the cleaning company, maybe they would have taken a credit card. And the contractor, maybe, when we did the basement, we paid him by check. So we write very few checks. And as I said to my friend, I said, I signed up to be the Keystone Chapter treasurer. No one else did. Meaning Liz didn't. And when somebody sends me a check, Liz has to get involved. Whether it's writing up a deposit, telling me who it's from and how much it's for, or writing a check. And that's one thing that unfortunately Liz has to do. She has to write checks unless we get, we're looking into getting QuickBooks for our personal account. So then I would just I would just create another account for Keystone and do it that way. And then that way, at least I could write checks without having needing Liz's help. And then once we make up the deposit, we have to take it to the bank. So Liz didn't sign up to be treasurer or assistant treasurer or anything else. She's happy to help out, but, she works a lot of hours each week. She does extended day, as I've mentioned. She works an extra, probably 15 hours a week in extended day, an hour each day before school, and then 3 days a week, it's about 3 hours after school. So that's the last thing she wants to do is come home and have more work to do. So especially as someone who is blind or visually impaired, I don't want to ask for help from somebody. I want to do it. I want to do it independently. As I've mentioned on countless episodes here, I want to be as independent as possible. I don't want to ask for somebody's help if I don't need it. And, so I was just kind of curious as to, the fact that he still writes checks, because I know he has, obviously he's in the NFB. So, he has vision issues. I don't know if his vision is better or worse than mine. I know he got a great looking service dog though, about a year ago. So yeah, I just, how many checks do you write today compared to 10 years ago or 15 years ago? I'm sure it's a lot less. So I was kind of taken aback by his response to the, the donation email. I didn't send it out because I wanted, to get donations for the chapter. I mean, I do, but a couple people had asked. So I thought, hey, I better do this so they can do them electronically. Again, the easiest way for everybody involved. So that is all I have for you this week on episode 104, the Johnny episode of the I Can't See You podcast. I really appreciate you listening to this episode, and I hope you are staying safe, washing your hands, wearing your mask if you want, and if you don't come near me. I don't know if the masks help. It makes me feel better when I wear it outside. I didn't wear it when I was shoveling the driveway, though. But please continue to stay safe. And I will have an episode next week on Christmas Eve, and I have a feeling I'm going to have a guest, and it's going to be a good one. Just think of Boy Wonder. And I will talk to you next week. Thanks again for listening.
Thank you for listening to the I Can't See You podcast. Follow David on Twitter. He is at David Benj.